The Senate is revising components of a $250 billion bill to boost U.S. science and technology, including a reported potential $10 billion bailout for Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin. They had lost out on a NASA contract originally to SpaceX.
DC Bureau Chief of the Intercept, host of the Deconstructed podcast, Ryan Grimm, joins us now to discuss what's going on here, Ryan. This seems like an awful convenient bailout for Mr. Bezos.
Well, you said it well, and it's quite a striking example of how Washington can work for you if you're one of or the richest person on the planet. So Jeff Bezos owns a space company called Blue Origin, which was competing with Elon Musk's SpaceX for this lunar program, where NASA is basically, outsourcing its capacity to get astronauts to the moon in the next generation. They haven't taken a person to the moon since 1972. SpaceX came in with a lower bid. They won the contract. This happened over the last month or so. And so Senator Maria Cantwell, who represents Washington State, where Jeff Bezos used to live, I guess he's now a D.C. resident, but his constituent services still go through Washington State since D.C. doesn't have any senators. She introduced an amendment which has now been attached to a bill that's on the floor and could get a vote as early as Thursday that would say, you know what? One contract probably isn't enough. How about we do two? And SpaceX already has its. Let's see who gets the second one. Now, there were only 3 companies who bid. There's a third who people don't think is likely to get, named Dynetics, who is unlikely to get this one. And you can imagine who this one's aimed for just by the identity of the senator, the Washington State senator who attached it. So it looks like Bezos may have lost but gotten bailed out anyway.
Incredible.
Interesting. I mean, what does this reveal to you about the way that Washington works? How would this have come to pass?
What's so amazing is that NASA actually went with SpaceX not just because they were cheaper, but they were much cheaper. $3 billion compared to I think $6 billion on Blue Origin's bid. And they said, look, I know that Congress had suggested that we bid out to a couple of different companies, but we don't have enough money. They had come to Congress multiple times saying, if you really want this project, if you really want us getting to the moon, we're going to need a bigger budget than we have right now. NASA was unable to persuade Congress. The only way that Congress decided to open up the piggy bank is when Bezos and Blue Origin said, hey, wait a minute, we thought we were going to get this contract, but we didn't. And so then all of a sudden, $10.032 billion authorization winds up in this new bill and moves quite quickly. Now it's not done yet. It would still have to go. It still has to go through the Senate, to go through the House. They have to find the money through an appropriation or some already appropriated money that they can move there. But it's a huge win for Bezos and Blue Origin, and it's a bigger win than NASA itself was able to get.
See, this is where I think is completely crazy. And I believe, as Musk has even pointed out, SpaceX beats them on almost every metric, on price as well as their own proven ability in order to, get to space, which seems pretty important whenever we're putting these contracts in. And yet, I don't think it's an irony that we're citing the Washington Post in terms of its reporting here and more. It just goes to show you how wired you can have this town when you have both the senator and a media outlet which can push this.
Right, and this became bipartisan as well. I think the amendment that eased its way into this bill on the floor, I think, got 71 votes in the United States Senate. Right. You can't get a resolution celebrating puppies that gets 71 votes in the United States Senate.
That's true.
$10 billion for Bezos' Blue Origin. Yeah, sure. That sounds good.
But Ryan, I think the point you raise is actually a really important and profound one about the public capacity versus private capacity. When it was NASA making the case, like, we're going to need some more dollars here if you want us to do it. No, that's too much money. We're going to have to go to the private sector. But when the private sector's like, we need more money, they're like, sure, how much do you need? Let me just open up the checkbook. And I think that shows you how this national narrative has been shaped wrongly in many cases, that the private sector delivers goods more cheaply, when oftentimes, you only have to look at health insurance to know that that is not the case. And also shows you how we've really degraded public capacity to build and do with our own government resources over decades. I think this is a perfect example of that.
It really is, and this was the dream of people like Musk and Bezos 20 years ago when they both launched their space companies. The idea then that it was going to be private companies that went to the moon was fanciful. Although, if you were one of the kind of like anarchist no logo types of the 90s, you would have said, well, yes, with that, this is the direction that it is heading. Government is privatizing everything, and then it's going to create this class of private billionaires who are then going to celebrate the free market and the wisdom of the business community over the public, when the public is the one that is funding their enterprises.
Yeah,
that's such a good point.
Really interesting story, Ryan. Thanks for picking up on it.
You got it.
Coming up, U.S. government officials have condemned the arrest of a 26-year-old Belarusian journalist after those authorities in that country forced the plane down to land in the capital of a different country, seized him on the tarmac. Crazy story. Journalist Glenn Greenwald is going to talk about all of this when Rising returns.